Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to view Alice in Borderland, Season 2, Episodes 5 and 6. So, I, of course, was to kind of casually see the ending of this season before I was, of course, to kind of finish up what I was to finish up for these episodes. Because someone else was kind of watching it while I was also watching it. And for the way that this season ends, it ends very confusing. And a lot of people will probably want to go on and kind of get people's clear consensus on the way that the ending was written for this. Because I was like, what? Like, what? Like, wait a minute, how is this? Like, wait a minute, how do we have these? Wait a minute, what's going on here? What? And so, when we get to that, I'll hopefully, like, state it's like, well, maybe I feel like this is this. And maybe people are like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. Or, no, I thought of that, too. Like, that's what my assumption was. But, yeah, there is so much crap to, like, figure out and put pieces together for the ending of this season that'll be really interesting to just kind of talk that out. So I hope that that's not going to take 2 years to finish up the season. As well as me also needing to delay a day to get a video out. I apologize. I had some personal things going on. It was also Christmas Day for whatever reason. It was, technically. So, but yeah, so we go into this episode and we have a Goonie who is going after the King of Spades. And he's trying to take this guy out. Because if there's only one man that can go on and take out the King of Spades, it's probably not going to be a Goonie, but we'll figure that out when we get there. We also have some backstory from Haya, the kind of the arrow girl, as I'm to go on and state that's who she is. She's the Daryl Dixon of Alice in Borderland. I thoroughly enjoy Haya, if that is even how to even pronounce her name. I thought that this character was so cool, and really, she gives us like a Bruce Willis Die Hard moment, and that was pretty cool. We also are to go on and get some backstory for Shintaro. When, of course, he is to go into this game that is to be in the Supreme Court. But yeah, so overall, these two seasons, or these two episodes, these two things that I just watched, we have the pacing and the story that goes really well. There wasn't, like, a moment here where I was like, man, like, this is, like, painfully slow or, like, way too fast-paced. Like, it feels like they kind of perfectly, if the first 4 episodes were very lopsided, this one, like, hit really well. And so, like, I think the next 2 episodes will also hit really well also, to kind of wrap this bad boy up. So, we also have some characters that are really separating. Like, we have a bunch of times where a lot of people are to have their own journeys, and then come full circle back around to meet up with the rest of the group to kind of to finish things up. But everybody's kind of going on their journeys. Like, I have no clue what the F Anne is doing. I am so baffled or confused why Anne is doing what she's doing. Because it just seems that, like, what she does, I'm like, what is the point of this? Isn't her visa gonna run out? Isn't she gonna die soon? I just was like, what, like, she's just going on her backpacking adventure and just going off somewhere. But yeah, so we have a lot of fun things going on in these episodes, and we also have a really tender moment between Usagi and Risu, and so much so that we're really thinking that these two are going to end up together and hope for the best for that. So with that said, I think it's about that time to just go on into the spoilers. I felt like these episodes were like solid, good episodes. For the life of me, I can't just go on and just state that they're great. Um, there is some good games in here. There were some really just good stuff. I liked it. It was fun. Um, and it makes me just realize that this show was finishing up soon, and that just kind of sucks. But anyways, uh, we'll see where we go further into this show to wrap it up. So with that said, let's go into that double five. It's about that time yet again to, of course, go on into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time to spoil this episodes. So, one thing that I have to state, when we get to the Supreme Court part, there are two characters that I have a name possibly of, but I can't connect the name to the face. There were two characters like that I was like, okay, I don't know who is who here. They don't mention who is who. So, like, when I had that one thing before, I had to, like, retroactively come up with every single one of the names and kind of reverse order everything. And so when we get to the Supreme Court part, I was like, okay, like, there's two names that obviously they don't state in the episode, so I couldn't put a face to a name, so that just sucked. But otherwise, I am going to just try to get everything hopefully correct, especially when I butcher pronunciations. My bad. My bad. But Haya, great character. Die Hard moment. We'll get to that. So let's go into it. So in the beginning of this, we have Usagi. That goes, and I'm just stating the last name because it's a lot easier than the first. So Usagi, we have her going on and shouting out for Risu. Risu, where are you, buddy? Maybe lover sometime soon. We have a Risu that had gone on to be schlepped away by Ugane, or Ugane, Ugane, and so we now have a Risu who is talking to Ugane, and so we have them kind of giving an update of who is alive and who is dead from the people that they knew. So we have a Risu that tells Ugane, or Uguni, that Niragi is still alive, that they had gone on to bump into Anne and Shintaro, and they had just kind of just separated from them. He states that Hikari is still, like, alive, like, they also just separated from her. Tata didn't make it, he died, and so we have a Risu that states that he was just going and looking for Usagi, and so Uguni is to say, like, okay, all right, well, I'm gonna go on, and I'm going after the King of Spades, like, that's my goal. So we go on and are to show Haya. So we now have to go on and have her backstory getting told. So Haya, we find out that she was some schoolgirl with two other girls, and she was talking about her nails getting done. Isn't that great? Yeah. Yes, I had to go on and say it that way also. So Haya was talking to her gals about getting the nails done. And so we have the girls kind of walking out of school, and we have three boys that approach them, and they're like, well, hey, how about we go to this grill? Like, how about we grill food? Wouldn't that be great? And we have Haya that's like, no, like, grilling would not be great. You know how hot it is? Plus, also, Haya is mentioning how this is the anniversary of her mother who had died. And Haya is to go on and state that her mother had died while cheating on somebody, and so Haya doesn't really have much respect for her own mother. So, plus also, Haya was just thinking that these guys were trying to get with them girls. So Haya was just like, no, do you guys think you really have a chance? And then they walk off, ha 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 ha, and they're like, oh, I feel bad that I just said that. So we have Haya and her friends walking off because heaven forbid you really can have me figure out who Haya's friends were, because cast list is very thin. So Haya is talking to her friends, and we find out that how, like, Haya is to have this archery skill because she, of course, was in archery club. So her friends go on and ask her, it's like, well, hey, are you going to archery club? And she's like, no, I don't feel like it. And so they start talking gossip. They talk about how Meg had broken up with Odaken. I'm hoping that's how it's pronounced. Odaken? Something like that. So we have Haya that is to go on and say it's like, well, like, I guess you guys didn't get the news of how, like, Odaken felt about Meg. And Odaken was to state that it's like it's over between them, and that Odaken was really interested in Haya, probably because of her archery skill. I'm sure that's what it was. So the girls were sitting, it's like, oh man, did you, like, nail Odaken? Like, wow. Like you just go on and nail anything that moves. So we all of a sudden have Haya that is to see this kind of flare in the sky, and then all of a sudden we then transition to this dome setting, which I was like, oh my god, this is freaking awesome. They blew money, it seemed, on a whole dome set or some kind of goofy, like, CGI like thing. But oh my god, was that just great. Like, I was like, oh my god, this is like a perfect place to do a thing like this, like at a place you would normally think would just be a game. I've always ever kind of wanted to do like a monster world or like a zombie thing that all took place in a stadium somewhere, but I think that would cost a load of money to try and accomplish. But man, would that be cool, right? So we have this dome game, and so we have people who are requested to take these phones. So I'm like, oh, okay, here's how they get by, like, having to put on, like, the Titantron or something, or the some, like, big, massive screen and say what everybody is doing. Instead, they have all these phones. They're like, hey, yeah, 17 people. Isn't this great? So we find out that 17 people are within this game, and the level of this is 7 of spades. And come to find out, the game is called Boiling Death. That sounds great, right? That sounds hot. So the rule is to just escape the stadium as best as you can, or really, like, if you are to almost be dead, hopefully you're not going to be fully dead by the time you get out of there. So we come to find out that the arena starts to collapse, and we all of a sudden have these, like, almost like geyser or burst things going on, which I would assess or assume that this has to do with something with the sprinkler system. That's how I can rationalize, like, the water gusting out of this whole stadium. Because I'm assuming it has some tie into the sprinkler system or just something in beneath the arena. Anyways, because I know arena stuff. No. Anyways, so we go on to have everybody trying to get out of here, and we have Haya that is to be kind of within this rubble because she couldn't escape herself, and she all of a sudden is to have this metal rod like thing. This is a great visual that I'm doing here, right? We have this metal rod, and I'm doing it like that. That just sounds wrong. But we have this rod that is through Haya's leg. And so she has to pull out her own leg. She has to just rip her leg out. And I'm just like, dang, woman. All right. So we then all of a sudden have Haya that pulls her leg from this rod, whips her leg out, and then she goes on to see this vent, and I'm like, oh my god, she's doing a Die Hard. Haya is like scraping through this vent, and she's just like, yeah, like, go to a party, have a few laughs. Like, so Haya goes through this vent, and she is stating, it's like, seriously, I'm gonna die because I was to go on and cheat with some other dude? Like, really? I was to be sent to hell because of this? Really? So we have Haya that's like pushing through this vent, and then we have to go on and tell the rest of this story later, sadly enough. So we have a Gune who is talking to Hatter, and Hatter is to come to us as this weird goofy spirit of a man, but also Hatter. So Hatter is going on and stating, this is not who you are. You should have died with all of those beach people, but you're still alive somehow. You should have died at that beach, but you're still here for some goofy reason. So he states that the King of Spades is a warrior, and you're not that. So, like, why are you gonna try to go on and face up against this guy? You're going to die. So we have Arisu after that whole goofy moment. We have Arisu who's just kind of, he's just sleeping. He's like, yeah, hey, Haya, like, showed a bit of more skin than I thought you would, Haya. So Arisu is to just, like, pretend that he's still sleeping to give Haya her privacy. And Haya is asking Arisu, it's like, dude, you, like, are you not skilled, bro? Are you not underwear skilled? What the does that mean? She goes and asks him if he's a virgin. And Arisu's like, no, I'm not a virgin. Yes, I probably am. So we have Arisu that is seeing Haya just kind of like jump on top of him. And Haya is to state that she hasn't, like, done it in a while, and Arisu seems like a nice guy. And we also had Haya that was asking Arisu, it's like, well, hey, if you, like, are you with anybody? Like, is she as good looking as me? And Arisu is just like, I don't know how to answer that. So we have Haya, who is all up on Arisu's business. And so we all of a sudden have a Goonie that walks in. And Haya is like, well, hey, like, don't be mad that I jumped on this guy, because I asked you before and you said no. I could have gone on and got me some of that, but you were like, no. So we have a Goonie that's like, you know what, like, let's go on, let's get out of here, but should I give you guys 10 to 15 minutes? That's what he should have said. That's what he should have said. So we have them decide they're going to ambush the King of Spades. And so we have them talking about a train station. So they're talking about Hichi... I'm just going to spell this out. Kichijoji. Hichijoki Station? That's as good as I can pronounce it. So, we have the three of them making their way through this forest to go on and find out that some dude has hung himself. And Logan Paul is ticked somewhere. I'm sure he is. So, if you guys do not know, there is a section in a certain place where it seems that is to be known for people bizarrely hanging themselves. And so it seems that we go on to find a character who is to be in the forest just kind of letting himself go before his visa is to run out. So we have the three of them notice this, and so they're like, well, like, this guy was a coward because he kind of went out that way. Whatever. However people want to live their lives. So we then go on and get back to Haya's backstory, because Haya is to mention that she had lost something. And if I weren't to have already noticed, I'm like, wait a minute, like, this girl had like a I want to be sensitive here. She has like a peg leg kind of thing going on. And so I noticed that in the earlier part here, and then I was like, okay, why does she have that? And then they told that story. I was like, oh, okay, like, so I wasn't like seeing things. They had to actually tell that story. So we go and have Haya, who crawls out of this vent, and it's to all of a sudden get to this kind of cliff part of the part that she climbed out of, and all of a sudden she's seeing her mom as like a ghost. And so, like, we really have Haya and a Goonie that are very similar. They see spirits of their past. So we have Haya's mother that's like telling her, hey, come down here and come to me. So Haya's like, can I trust you, Mom? And Haya's mom is just like, yeah, come on down. You're the next contestant on Hopefully You Survive This. So Haya drops. She falls into the water, and she realizes that the water is not boiling. So she's like, oh my god, I'm going to get out of here, and it's all because of my ghost mother. So we next up have Haya, who is to make it to a hospital. I'm assuming, because there's just a lot of hospital stuff there. So Haya meets this doctor. I'm like, how convenient that there ends up being a doctor in the house. But it seems that we are to not be alone with finding out that there are doctors in the house within this episode. So we have some doctor who's creepy and like, hey, hi. So he goes on and tells Haya that she is having advanced gangrene, which more than likely is going to state that she's going to lose that leg, sadly enough. So Haya is looking at this doctor. It's like, well, what do you want? Like, can I pay you money? And the doctor's like, what do I need money here for? Like, do you realize that I'm not going to go to the 7-Eleven and get a Slurpee and have to just pay for that? Do you think I'm going to have to go on and get all the toys that I've ever wanted in a store and not have to pay for any of it? No. Yeah, I'm going to get, like, my greatest collection of stuff that I've always ever wanted. And that will be my goal for the day. That's what I'm going to do. Just go into a toy store and just have a spree. So, why wouldn't you go into a gun store? Yeah, that's what I would be thinking for every bit of every single one of these episodes. Why don't people have more guns in this show? Why isn't there like an arsenal of guns being everywhere with everyone? Everyone should have a gun in this show, but they don't. So they must have just gotten picked clean with the guns, I guess. Probably from the first season, I'm probably been forgetting something. So we have the doctor that is to go on and kind of take off his lab coat and be like, I want to get something out of this. And Haya is like, well, hey, like, but you better fix my leg. So Haya loses the leg, sadly enough. So R.I.P. leg, R.I.P. So we go on to have Usagi that is to make her way into scavenging into some home. Because Arisu, her finding him is like a moot point at this point. She is starving. She's got the rumbly tumblies. So Usagi goes on to find nothing in this house, and we have two people come to her. One girl don't know her name, and the other little kid is Koda. Sweet, right? He's a pimp. So no wonder they make him king. He's a freaking pimp. He is. So we have Usagi that goes on to find these two people, and they're like, well, yeah, like, we already tried through here to find something, and here's some graham crackers, or whatever crackers that they end up calling this. And so we have Usagi's like, and she eats the crackers. And so we have Usagi that is talking to this girl who has Koda. And so the girl ends up stating that she thinks that the kid Koda is to not have parents. So I, of course, was to just be like, well, yeah, like, if this kid is to go on and, like, win and beat everything and whatever, like, what is he gonna really have to go back to? Where is he gonna go on and have somebody give him a shopping spree to a toy store? He's not gonna have that unless he goes to an orphanage, probably. Which, unless Arisu and Usagi adopt him, because that's what they should do. They should adopt Koda. They should. So even though they probably don't have they probably don't have money for a kid because they're young, not too young. Maybe some of that TV money will come in, the TV show money, but still. So why? I don't know. So we have Usagi that is reminding herself again of Mr. Usagi, and how he was going to state that he did not want to die an old man in some hospital bed. That if there was ever a point where Mr. Usagi would go on into a mountain and never come back, it's like, well, hey, like don't be sad for him, and it's so on and so forth, because like he died happy. And so we are to weirdly naturally assume that maybe Usagi was kind of like maybe planning his own death. I don't know. But like this guy was stating that he just definitely didn't want to die an old man warm in his bed for whatever goofy reason. So like something about that just seemed off. So we go on to have now Anne, who is to make her way to Yokohama through this map, and she is to need to carve this tree up so she can kind of figure out where she's going. So weirdly, I don't really get the Anne stuff. I can't really rationalize it. Maybe she's just trying to figure out how things are different than what she's ever gone on to see before from maps. Like thinking that there's maybe a whole world out there that is dealing with this same problem, or maybe it's not. Maybe she's gonna go on to the like another part of the world where all of a sudden she's gonna like find other people that are dealing with this same problem in another town or another state or another city somewhere. Wouldn't that be cool? It would be a lot of jumping around in this show, that I hope that they never go on and do. But when really thinking about it, if they did like heavily jump around, like I think if you went on and did it by a whole episode by episode basis, like if you went on to do one whole episode focusing on something and then another whole episode focusing on one thing, and then have like at some point those characters like meet up, then that would be cool. So like a normal show would probably do. Anyways, so we have Uguni that is to showcase this cliff. That it's like this is where we want the king to make his way here. And so they come up with these smoke bombs, and we have also them trying to set up these trapwire explosives. And we then go on to have like Risu, who is kind of waiting, and kind of this armed guard, and just kind of waiting to see if the king will come. So we find out that Isoa, or Ico, the king, makes his way down here and is kind of slowly but surely kind of creeping on Arisu. And Arisu is to start to fall asleep. And so we come to find out that Arisu was used as bait. And so we have a Goonie that is to try to take down the king. And so Risu and Goonie are like hiding underneath this tree. And they're saying like, oh my god, is this guy like invisible? Invincible? If I could say that, invincible? Because come to find out this guy like just has body armor. It's like, what is this? Is this guy a robot? Like, can we never kill him off? Does he also have endless bullets? Because it seems like he does. Like, this guy has like an entire armory everywhere, it seems. Because good god, this guy has a bajillion bullets. And he just reloads and fires away again. I'm like, holy crap. Like, when does this guy ever not, like, just have, like, a blade out and just slices and dices people? Jeez. So, gee willikers. So, we have a flare that ends up getting, shot off. And so, we have a Goonie that fired. And, so we end up having a Goonie and the king trying to fight one another. We have Haya that ends up kicking the king with her leg, with her peg leg, sadly enough. So we go and have a Goonie and Arisu trying to fight off the king. Arisu ends up falling off this cliff, and he kasplunks into the water. So we have Arisu who is crawling out of the water, and so we have Arisu that continues on to find this person with a tent, and this tent looks just like Usagi's from, of course, if you guys remember, when Arisu and Usagi were in, like, that tent together. So, Arisu thinks that this is Usagi, but it's not. It's some guy who's like, ha! I'm eating things! Go away! So, we all of a sudden have Uguni that is to lose track of the king. And all of a sudden, Uguni is seeing Hatter again. And Uguni is telling him to go away. And Hayao's like, hey, what's wrong? Like, you're still alive? Isn't that great? So, we have a Risu that just continues to go into town. And Risu is to see that every bit of this town is to kind of seem like I Am Legend, or any kind of just uh, post-apocalyptic town when like it's been uh, like with a bunch of vines and plants and stuff that just kind of plant their way onto all of these buildings, and we see like a big massive like plant town, it seems. And so we have uh, Hikari that is in the Jack of Clubs game. She's clubbing around. So we have all this like fighting going on, and Hikari's beating up all these people, and she goes on to say like, man, like these games are no joke. And it's like, I'm sorry, have you never gone on and done a game in your life? Of course, they're going to get horrible. Like, why don't you know that? It's a matter of life or death every time. But yeah, she has like cuts on her body, and she is just kind of like figuring out a way to like bandage them and whichever. We all of a sudden have Anne, who is out and about, finally going on and stating, "This isn't the world I know." This seems like the kind of Hercules moment where we go on and have Hercules who like shouts out the word disappointed, which is the funniest thing that Kevin Sorbo has ever gone and done. Where we have Kevin Sorbo that is like evil Hercules, and he's like, "This is not my world. Disappointed!" And it's like the goofiest thing. But the whole thing of it is that he was actually supposed to like look disappointed, but instead he shouted it instead. But man, still, like, I would have probably shouted out the word too. I'm disappointed. I would just tell everybody that I'm just disappointed in them. Like, hey, you random person, I'm disappointed in you. Very disappointed in you, sir. You suck. Just so you know, just so you're aware. So, we have Usagi that is to go into her own Queen of Hearts game with Coda, because come to find out, Coda's visa is running out, and I guess the other girl just effed off because she's like, no, my visa's fine. Like, I'm not going to come with you guys to probably die. I'm going to be peacing out. So I think we also we also had Arisu, who is to go on and find a game that had already ended, and we see the blimp kind of blown up, and it's kind of like falling. Where do all these blimps go? You would think there'd be like a massive fire in this town somewhere. Do these blimps every time like fall into the water and it's all good? Where do the blimps go? Like, I would assume that the whole town would be in flames by now, but it's not for some goofy reason. So, but yeah, so there was to be this game that I think was a Queen of Diamonds, and so we of course had Arisu who was calling out for Usagi and there, thinking that she had gone there and she wasn't. So Arisu is possibly thinking, it's like, well, yeah, probably a number of people are all dead that he probably knows. But so we have Usagi that it's to make her way with Coda to the Queen of Hearts game, and we have one guy who is looking at this kid. It's like, hey, buddy, hey, I'm gonna touch your head, treat you like a dog, and just be like, hey, and then he goes on and talks right to Usagi. He's like, well, hey, like, this kid could go on and weigh us down, so I'm gonna do whatever I can to win. And Coda should have been like, I heard that, motherfucker. What'd you say about me? Huh? What? Slap. The kid could slap him. It's okay. So we have a Risu that's coming in as like, well, I think like Usagi's gonna do fine, and then Usagi's like, Risu, oh my god, you showed up. Where were you for like the last like 2 days? I had to go on to find crackers and a kid named Koda. So we find out that the game is to be called Checkmate. And I thought that this game was pretty awesome. Like, we don't already have, like, games that are really just, like, tag for a lot of this, but it's still freaking cool. We have this kind of almost, like, laser tag, like, tag thing almost going on here. So it was pretty interesting. So, we, of course, have the queen, who is to go on like, well, I wonder who's going to be the queen of my team. Well, I guess it's going to be me. Now I have to go on and I have to try to figure out who the king is going to be for the other team. And so we go on to have the queen, who is to have Koda be the king for their team. It's like, well, yeah, of course. So we find out that the rounds are 5-minute rounds, and that they are telling people to, like, hey, go on, put on these vests, so eventually you're going to die at some point. Because whoever is to be on the team with the least amount of people, they, of course, will die. So that's the whole goal of it all. So when the game gets going, we have them state that, like, staying together is a mistake, which I'm just like, why wouldn't they, like, stay together? Like, if you go on and you have, like, a huge, massive group, and they all go on and tag, like, the fewest people, then shouldn't they win right away? I don't know, that's just me. Maybe that just goes on and states that, like, by the time, like, you, like... But also, if we have so many people in one area, like, we had Usagi that kind of tags 3 people at one time. So, I don't know, I guess it all depends on, like, how good one person could possibly be. So, everybody decides to start splitting up and running. And so, we have the blue that is going on and kind of watching how, like, quickly the red is going at this game and how good they are. And so we have a guy who is wearing a bike helmet, and the queen is coming for him and slapping him on the back, and he ends up getting shocked. And so the queen is like, yeah, I'm going to use you as my pawn. I'm going to use you as my freaking doormat to just tell everybody hello. In all honesty, it's sad. So the challengers didn't know that they would get shocked, and so, man, does that suck. So we have the bike helmet guy, who is, of course, like, the next round, like, hey, man, tag me. And so because we realize that hey, like, well, yeah, our team is going to want to just kind of, like, re-become blue people. And by the end of all this, like, we're going to just beat them because of numbers game. But come to find out, that would be the opposite. When one guy tries to go on and save the bike helmet guy, we have the queen that comes in and is to kind of, like, push the helmet guy aside and kick away the blue guy. So, like, Risu is going with Usagi and realizing, like, oh my god, like, the queen is trying to prevent people from tagging other people. Wow, that seems like an interesting strategy. So the queen ends up getting another red. We end up having 2 reds that corner 1 blue, I think on, like, a stairwell, and they kind of slap him on the back, and he's like, ah! So we have all of a sudden the Queen team who is starting to convince the blue people, like, well, hey guys, like this Queen guy, this Queen chick, she always wins. Like, she's freaking amazing. She beats the crap out of people. And so wouldn't you want to just always be on her team? Because she wins all the time, and this will save you from getting killed by King Spade uh, while being out there. And like you can just kind of keep on working with the queen till the cows come home. And so we have a lot of people who are buying into this. They're like, yeah, you're right. I won't have to get killed off. It'll be great. So we then have the queen who is telling the rest of her team, it's like, well, hey, like, I want that one kid who came in with that girl and that little boy. And the guy was like, well, yeah, I think his name is Erusu or something. Something like that. Starts with an A, right? I want to just call him, yeah. That's what his name was. And so, yeah, we have the queen who's like, yeah, get me Arisu, because that guy, he's thinking. He's smart. Like, he's strategizing where everybody else is just kind of flinging all over the place. So we have Arisu and Usagi that are kind of running all over the place. And so we get to where Arisu is to, of course, like almost get to the point where he's against the queen. And we have Usagi that it's like, no. Like, Arisu, they want you, so run off and I'll just fight her off. Because they don't care about her. They don't care about Usagi, sadly enough. Weirdly, I don't know why. So the queen is to go on and put Usagi in her place, just kind of slam her down. Like, I'm going after that guy. So we also have the queen that's like, well, nobody wants to see a kid die, but like, but hey, it's the greater good. And so we go on to have Usagi that tags 3 people all at once. They all turn blue. And so we now have Usagi that has to go on and figure out a way to change these guys' minds to work with them. And she ends up stating that it's like, well, hey, like, if we go on and we beat this one game, we'll go home. And think about it this way, at some point, you guys are going to get beaten, because if you're the only game in town, somebody's going to come after you and take you out. So it's only a matter of time. Like, you guys are just killing yourselves. And you guys might as well just kind of come to the good side instead of staying on the dark side. So the guy, after all this kind of talk and all this jibber jabber, the guy's like, yeah, I think she's right. So we have Arisu that is all of a sudden surrounded by people, surrounded by red, and he takes his chain and he swings, and he is to kind of lose these guys. So we finally have it to where everybody goes on and everybody ends up getting tagged for the blue side, and the queen is the only one who is red. And so the queen is like, like, I don't know how you did it, but you just kind of won all these people over. And so I think we have Arisu again that is to go on and ask the queen. It's like, well, hey, like when we do win this, like, do we get out of here? And we have the queen is like, well, you have to go on and like figure that out for yourself. Like, I'm not going to tell you. And so we have the queen that goes on to just kind of take this swan dive backwards, and she gets lasered in the head and she dies because she's like, well, hey, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out my own way, like very free and just kind of just falling into the air. or falling out of falling. So we have Arisu and we have Usagi that goes that kind of shuffles off. We have Usagi that tells Koda, it's like, hey, you won. Like, you won. Like, you did it. So, but yeah, so we have Arisu and we have Usagi that go off to find these hot springs. And they're going into this water. And Usagi's like, are we going to go in there together? And Arisu's like, heck yeah. Heck yeah, we are. No. So they both go in the hot springs together, and they all of a sudden, bizarrely, out of nowhere, are to realize that there are elephants. As if this is kind of turned into a zoo now. We have Arisu that goes on and kisses Usagi, after it seems that Arisu is to kind of be a gentleman and kind of not take a peek at Usagi. And Usagi's like, really? Like, come on. How many times have we kind of saved one another's lives? I think it's finally time to admit that there's something going on here. Or otherwise, Arisu is just going to get with Haya, and that would make a lot of sense. But while they're also kind of looking off to the side, they find a dead body, like a part of it in the distance. And they're looking at it like, well, that sucks. That kind of was a buzzkill. So, we now have Hikari that is to make her way home because I guess she didn't realize like where her home was. And so now that she had finally gone on to make it to her own home, and after she had gone on to do all the shopping and all these, and bought all these products and brought it into her room, it was like, yeah! I got the last iPhone! It's great! So, I'm making jokes. So, we have Hikari that is to find this photo of her and her mother. So, the next thing that we end up seeing is Anne. And Anne is to see a dead deer, and she's like touching it. And she's reminded of her own crime scene, because I guess that she is a CSI investigator. I don't remember that from her backstory from the first season. But so, we have Anne, who's this crime scene investigator. And we have this guy that's talking to her about this case. And they're stating that, like, this girl, like, she fought. She fought to the very end, you could tell. And, like, she fought to stay alive. So, next up, we have the King of Diamonds. And we're showing that this, of course, is to be held at the Supreme Court. So we have Shintaro. And we find Kaiichi, Kazuria, who was to have been the guy somewhere in the first season who actually was the King of Diamonds, and he was just chilling in the Hatter's kind of mansion. He was like the second guy in command. And, like, this guy was, like, hiding in plain sight to stay alive. So, we have Shintaro that's like, oh my god, like, you were the Hatter's number 2 guy. You are my number 1 guy. Batman for you, 89. So, we come to find out that this game is to be a thing called Beauty Contest, which is weird, because somebody's going to go on and not get beautiful by the end of this. So, we have this game where someone is to pick a number between 1 to 100. And whoever is to go on in to lose is to get a bucket of acid just dunked on them. And so, we have Kazuria. I'm going to go with Kaiichi. And if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I apologize. That's going to be the lawyer's name. So, Kaiichi is to win the first round as they pick out this number, because they have like 3 minutes to pick it. So, we have Shintaro that is to state, it's like, oh, like, if anybody has probably pretty good odds, it's going to be Kaichi, because he was a lawyer in the past. So we come to find out that Kaichi is to win the first 2 rounds. And so we have certain people that are just like, the acid's pouring, oh my god. So we find out a little bit of Kaichi's backstory. So there at one point was to have Kaichi, who was worried about some factory dumping that was causing problems. And we have Kaichi, who is talking to his boss, and is like, well, like we're gonna do nothing about this. Like, nah. Like, and so, like, just kind of don't be concerned with it. So we then go on to have me start to get confused of what number of round is what, because it seems that we go on and have at certain points where they, like, name the rounds, but then they don't go on and name the rounds. And so it's like, well, round 10, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? How did we all of a sudden get to round, like, 4 and 5, and then now we're at 10? What the heck is going on here, game? So we find out that Daimon, who is Hinoku Daimon, is to win the 3rd round, and she's all excited. She's like, yeah! I picked a good system, it's great! But then she's kind of worried later on about how the system is going to really work out. So we, in the 4th round, is to have Shintaro that picks 100. And people are like, 100? Are you insane? Like, you should not go on and pick 100. You should go on and pick, like, a reasonable number, because you're going to die if you keep picking that number, because everyone else is going to pick. And Shintaro's like, well, no, I just want to kind of play the odds. I want to see what is going to happen here. So, but Shintaro wins the 4th round. So we have Diamond, who wins the 5th round. And so then we have, like, them kind of skipping to, like, the 10th round. And so we go on and find that Kaichi is to win the 10th round. So we have 2 characters that go on and die here. We have Katashi Asuma, that is to go on and die. He is to get an acid dip in the face. And we have Benzo Yashid that goes on and dies also. Because they had gone on to pick the same number, and after that, that guy was toast. So we then go on and have Shintaro that wins, and so we all of a sudden have Daimon, like, possibly thinking that Shintaro is to possibly be reading her mind, like as if he's psychic. Call me now for his free reading. So we have Shintaro that breaks it down. It's like, well, no, like, I kind of figured with how much time that you were kind of taking that you would have to go on and pick this certain number, and so I immediately knew where you were heading, so I could kind of counter that. So we then have Daimon, who's like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what number to pick. I don't know where I'm going. So she goes on to die. That's where she goes. She goes on and gets a little dip. And so now we just have Shintaro against Kaichi, which I'm like, not really surprised. Like, the 2 characters that they had gone on and showed at some point of the show ending this game, I was like, what a massive surprise. You would just have a bunch of randos that kind of came in and were kind of mathematically figuring it all out. We had the one guy who was just like, well, yeah, like, if we went on and we picked 50 and maybe we should go on and pick, like, 23, like, everyone was doing a bunch of math in their head, and I was just like, man, like, I'm not a numbers guy, Like, I'm not thinking of how they're even going on and having to, like, mathematically rationalize all this with pies and point eights and doing all this calculation stuff in their head. Freaking whatever was going on there. So we go on to have the two of them who are left here. And so we now have Kaichi that is talking about 1,000,000 vaccines and who would get the cure. And we go on to have Shintaro that is to state like the perfect answer, because of course we find out that Shintaro is to have been a doctor before he came here. And so, come to find out, Shintaro would get the crappy jobs, I'm assuming. Doctor on the low totem pole. And so Shintaro would go on and tell this kid, Hayato, that, hey guy, like, you're gonna get your organ transplant. It's all great. Like, hopefully you're gonna go on and live after that, because hopefully your body doesn't reject that organ and it's all peaches and cream. So we have Shintaro that is to go on and tell this kid this great news, and then all of a sudden this other doctor comes in. It's like, well, yeah, that patient, he's gonna have to get backpedaled in the patient donor list, because some random kid of the director's relation, which is to be his grandchild, needs this organ, so this kid is gonna have to like hit the bricks. Hayato. And so we go on to find out that Hayato had died. And so the doctor goes on and talks to Shintaro, and it's like, well, hey, like, more than likely he would have gone on and have his body reject the organ anyways, when he would have gone through surgery, and he would have died still. So maybe I didn't really change much. So the doctor is just like, well, I can sleep at night, and he kind of walks away. So we have Shintaro that over and over again just gets all of these cases and all these horrible things. And so Shintaro, over time, is to just kind of take his crap and just keep on going on with it. But Shintaro is to tell this other doctor that it's like, well, it's not gonna, like, it's not gonna hang on me for the rest of my life or anything. Like, it's not gonna go on and have me worry about what I could have done. So we go on to have Kaichi, who is to be talking with Hatter when they were kind of setting up that whole beach people mansion thing. And like, Kaichi was asking Hatter, it's like, well, should we really like have this whole kind of massive mansion thing? Like, does this really make sense? And Hatter's like, well, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And so it's like, okay, all right, like, we'll believe him. So we go on to have Shintaro, who wins 2 in a row. And Shintaro is even going on and even like telling Kaichin like what his numbers are going to be, because there's only so many numbers that they can go on and pick. And so we have Kaichi that is trying to like figure out like the measure of a man, it seems. Like whether he should go on and save himself or save Shintaro. And like that is like a really noble thing. It's like, well, hey, am I a better man than this guy is? Like, can this guy in the future save more lives than I can? And that's the whole thing between the two of them. And so we all of a sudden have Kaichi that is to have talked to Miss Momoka, who was to go on and be the witch. Don't remember much about the first season, but there's something here. So we have Kaichi that goes on and asks Miss Momoka, like, well, hey, like, why are you going on and being the witch for these people? And Miss Mocha is to say, it's like, well, like, I'm going on and doing it for my ideals. And no one can take that away from me. And so Kaichi is like, wow, that's kind of a very, like, noble act of her. So we have Kaichi that is to go on and not take the easy way out, even when Shintaro is to, like, tell him, like, dude, I'm picking 100, like, you better pick one, you could win. And Kaichi is to go on and consistently pick 0. And is to die. And Shintaro is like, why did you do that? You could have easily won. And Kaichi is like, well, I'm doing it for my ideals. And so Kaichi loses, gets acid dumped, and we have Shintaro that's like, man, like, I'm so jealous of you. Like, you went out the way you wanted, and so yeah, like I'm jealous. So we go and have Shintaro, who leaves, probably after he's to kind of like, I'm getting a little acid on my shoes. So we have Haya that goes on to find Aguni and kiss him, and then kind of walks off. Random scene, I know. So we have both Azuri and Usagi that is going on and mentioning about how they're going to fight and how they're gonna do it. Different kind of do it, if you know what I mean. So yeah, we have Anne that goes on and puts on lipstick as if she's gonna go on and do something. We go on to have Hikari that is to have made it home, and she's like, well, I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna go back to the world. I'm gonna go back, like, I'm gonna do this. So Haya goes on and states that it's like, well, hey, I'm not fighting for the me of now, I'm fighting for the me of tomorrow. And so that, of course, is the way that this episodes are to end. So with that said, I'm going to get the heck out of here. Thank you for going on and listening to this. Thank you for going on and hearing what else I had to say for the day. So I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, buddy.